We're going to take a look at construction productivity now, because if you run a small business here in the ACT, I wonder for you, what are some of the greatest barriers in terms of you and your business? Is it getting the right staff, perhaps? Is it contractors? Is it having them all lined up, ready to go, being able to get people and all the materials when you need to? Is it about your buying power? Is it about whether or not you can have access to contractors? You know, planning regulations. Maybe it's the cash flow. Perhaps there's a combination of all these things and one that I haven't mentioned. In a new report released today by the Committee for Economic Development of Australia, they've told us that a dominance of very small businesses, Australia's tax settings, and also complex land regulations are some of the major barriers to productivity in construction. And if we are to agree that we need to perhaps improve construction rates and efficiency when it comes to construction, then how do we do that? With bringing these businesses along too. 0467 922 666 or 1300 681 666. Joining us now is James Brooks, who's an economist for the Committee for Economic Development of Australia. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Georgia.
The figures you use here in the construction industry, breaking it down, can you just explain to me the small operators, how much do they make up of the construction industry?
So the small operators make up a lot of the construction industry. In fact, 99% of Australian construction businesses have fewer than 20 employees. So this is very unique compared to other industries across Australia. And what we've found is that this is leading to poor productivity in the sector.
It's interesting when you say that, because when I think of construction, I think of all the big names too, but maybe that's the thing, that they're the multinational, the national ones, and they're the big names, but you've got all these smaller players as well. You're saying that that's the productivity, that's part of the reason, well, the productivity is down. How does our productivity compare now to, say, 20 or 30 years ago?
So our productivity compared to then is pretty flat. And in fact, what we've found is that Australia is building half as many homes per construction worker as we were in the 1970s, despite nearly half a century of development in building tech and materials. So this is obviously a pretty bad outcome when we're trying to meet our housing targets. And to give you an illustration on the impact of size, if the construction sector businesses matched or were a similar size to those in our manufacturing sector, it would be like having an extra 150,000 construction workers. So it makes a pretty big difference, especially when we're falling short of our housing targets. So
when you measure productivity, though, how do you do that?
So we will use a couple of measures. We look at data which is produced by the ABS, which has a really sort of economic lens to productivity. We also used the housing data which I just went into before, which is housing divided by construction workers. And we also commissioned some unique data in Australia where we looked at the total revenue generated by different firms and their total share of employment within the industry. And that's what helped us, or that's what led us to find that workers who are working in businesses that had 200 or more employees were generating 83% more revenue per worker than those who were in businesses with 5 to 19 employees. So it matters.
Are there some areas, I mean, did you break it down state by state or even territory or city versus regional? Was there differences in terms of the productivity?
So we kept it pretty high level nationwide so that we could take that long-term historical perspective. So unfortunately, I couldn't comment on any local trends per se.
Let's talk about what you think are some of these barriers to productivity. What were like the top few?
Yeah, so the barriers we're calling out, which is we believe is preventing the really good, really hard-working small businesses from growing, is our tax settings. Right now, we tax workers and contractors very differently, and this creates an incentive where eventually really good workers are incentivized to go and start their own small businesses and then stay small. Additionally, we have really complex and really decentralized planning regulations, some of the worst in the OECD. And we think this is also limiting the ability for firms to take on more and more work in different parts of the country, so people stay where they are.
When it comes to the smaller companies, so I understand the idea that people leave and start up a smaller one, but the idea of that smaller company not growing into a bigger company, is that down to tax, you're saying?
Yeah, we think some of that's down to tax, some of that is down to the land use planning regulations, which I just mentioned, and then of course some of it is due to this preference within the industry for outsourcing and subcontracting by the big players, which we sort of mentioned before. And what we would want to see is a distribution in the industry which looked a bit more closer to other industries in Australia, like manufacturing, for example, where not everyone's a big company. There's plenty of small and medium companies as well. But on the whole, it's a bit more even than what the construction industry is now.
James, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.